The courtroom was alive with whispers, muffled laughter, and the squeak of chairs as people settled in for what they thought would be a comedy show. At the center stood a boy, too young to be there, too naive to understand the gravity of the place, or so everyone believed. Judge Williams glanced down at him with narrowed eyes, his lips curling into a smirk. "Son," he said, his deep voice echoing across the hall, "this is a court of law, not your high school debate club." The audience erupted with laughter. Some shook their heads, others whispered, "What is this kid even doing here?" Across the room, attorney Richard Thompson, a man with 2 decades of courtroom victories, leaned back confidently. He chuckled, then adjusted his tie with a flourish. "Your Honor," Thompson said mockingly, "it's clear this boy doesn't grasp the seriousness of these proceedings. Perhaps we should excuse him before he makes a fool of himself." The boy didn't flinch. His name was Daniel Carter, barely 18. Yet his eyes, sharp and unyielding, cut through the room like a blade. "If I may, Your Honor," Daniel spoke with calm authority, "I'll prove that truth has no age. Justice belongs to those who fight for it." A hush fell over the room. The laughter died. For the first time, people leaned forward, curious. Judge Williams tilted his head, amused yet slightly intrigued. "Very well. If you insist on embarrassing yourself, proceed. This should be entertaining." The bailiff announced the case. On one side sat a wealthy businessman, Howard Milton, accused of defrauding a struggling family out of their home. On the other side stood Daniel, representing that very family. Alone. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Daniel failed, the family would lose everything. Attorney Thompson strutted confidently to the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice smooth as silk, "this case is nothing but noise. My client is innocent. The so-called evidence is weak, the accusations laughable. I trust you'll see through this charade." The jury nodded along. Thompson smirked, proud of his performance. Judge Williams leaned back, seemingly satisfied. Then Daniel stood. He straightened his worn suit, gathered his neatly stacked notes, and stepped forward.
Everyone.
"Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said firmly, his voice echoing, "power can hide lies, but evidence never does. By the end of this trial, you'll see the truth has only one side, and it isn't the side of the man who used wealth to destroy lives." The words hit like a hammer. The courtroom stilled. Even Thompson's smirk faltered the briefest moment. Judge Williams arched an eyebrow. He had expected the boy to stutter, to fumble. Instead, he spoke with the confidence of a seasoned attorney. "Not bad, Mr. Carter," the judge muttered, "but words are cheap. Let's see if you can back them up." The trial began. Witnesses were called, documents laid out. Attorney Thompson moved with practiced ease, objecting at every chance, twisting every statement to his advantage. He grew smug, confident that the boy would crumble. But Daniel didn't break. He watched carefully, biding his time. Every contradiction, every slip, every overlooked detail, he noted it all. The spectators began to whisper again, but this time it wasn't mockery. It was curiosity. "Who is this kid?" one asked. "He talks like he's been here before," another replied. Daniel adjusted his papers, his calm demeanor never faltering. While Thompson boasted and the judge smirked, Daniel's silence built suspense. And as the first witness prepared to leave the stand, Daniel finally rose. His moment had come. He walked slowly, deliberately, his eyes fixed on the man testifying. His first words were sharp and precise. "Mr. Milton, you swore you signed this contract personally, correct?" The witness nodded confidently. "Yes, in my office in front of 2 employees." Daniel's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. He lifted the document, holding it up for the court to see. "Your Honor," Daniel said, his tone calm yet cutting, "if you'll examine this page, you'll notice something unusual. The ink doesn't match." The signature was added with a different pen days later. The courtroom gasped. Thompson shot up instantly. "Objection! This boy doesn't know what he's talking about." But Daniel was ready. "Your Honor, objection applies only when a question is irrelevant. This question strikes at the very heart of the evidence." Judge Williams froze. His smirk faded for the first time. The boy had quoted courtroom procedure flawlessly. A murmur spread across the room. The child wasn't just prepared. He was dangerous. Judge Williams leaned forward now, eyes sharp. "Proceed," he said quietly. Daniel locked eyes with the witness, his calmness unshaken. "So tell me again, sir," he pressed, "how could you have signed this document in front of your employees when the ink proves you didn't?" the witness stammered. Thompson fumbled with his notes, and the spectators, who once laughed at the boy, now sat on the edge of their seats. For the first time, the tide in the courtroom began to turn. The witness froze, sweat glistening on his forehead. The once confident businessman suddenly looked cornered. "So, Mr. Milton, would you like to correct your statement, or should I?" The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Williams slammed his gavel. "Judge Williams, order. I'll have order in my courtroom." Attorney Thompson jumped to his feet, desperate to regain control. "Your Honor, this boy is making baseless accusations. He lacks the expertise to determine forgery." Daniel didn't even look at him. He raised a folder from his table and placed it before the judge. "Your Honor, this isn't my opinion. This is the official forensic report, signed by the county's handwriting expert. It proves the signature was added later, which means Mr. Milton lied under oath." The judge's eyes widened slightly. He flipped through the report, then turned his sharp gaze toward the witness. "Judge Williams, Mr. Milton, do you realize perjury is a crime punishable by imprisonment?" The businessman's hands trembled. His voice cracked. I must have misremembered." Daniel cutting in sharp. "No, sir, you didn't misremember. You fabricated the truth." Gasps filled the courtroom. Thompson's face turned pale. For the first time, the seasoned lawyer seemed rattled. Narrator, the people who once mocked the boy now sat in silence, their eyes glued to him. He wasn't just holding his ground, he was dismantling the defense piece by piece. The next witness was called, Milton's personal secretary. She walked to the stand, visibly nervous. Thompson adjusted his tie and tried to regain his composure. "Thompson, Miss Green, please tell the court, did you see Mr. Milton sign the contract in your office?" The secretary nodded quickly. "Yes, I did. I was there." Thompson gave a satisfied smile. No further questions. He sat down, confident that her testimony would patch the damage. But Daniel rose slowly, his expression unreadable. He approached the witness stand, pausing for a moment to let the silence stretch. "Daniel, Miss Green, you said you were in the office when Mr. Milton signed the contract, correct?" "Yes," she replied quickly. "Which day was that?" Tuesday, around noon." Daniel nodded, flipping a page in his binder. "Interesting. Because on Tuesday at noon you weren't in Mr. Milton's office, were you?" The secretary stiffened. I was." Daniel lifted another document. "This is your time card from the company's system. It shows you clocked out at 11:15 a.m. that day. You didn't return until the next morning." The woman's face turned pale. She glanced at Thompson, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "So, Miss Green, tell the jury, how could you witness a signing when you weren't even there?" The courtroom exploded with murmurs. The secretary stammered, fumbling for words. Judge Williams raised a hand, his voice firm. "Answer the question, Miss Green." Tears welled in her eyes. "I was told what to say." Daniel. "Told? By whom?" He hesitated. Then with trembling lips she whispered, "By Mr. Thompson." The room gasped. Thompson leapt to his feet. "Objection! She's lying!" His face betrayed him. His perfect composure was gone. Narrator, the mighty attorney, the man everyone respected, was unraveling before their very eyes. It was a teenager pulling the strings. Judge Williams narrowed his eyes. "This is becoming very serious. Counselor Thompson, I suggest you refrain from coaching witnesses." Daniel returned to his table, his every step deliberate, his every movement dripping with quiet confidence. The spectators could no longer hide their astonishment. "Who is this kid?" one man whispered. "He's not just a boy," another muttered. "He's a prodigy." The day dragged on, witness after witness, and each time Daniel struck with precision. He spotted contradictions, exposed lies, and cited case law like he had practiced for years. At one point, Thompson tried to object again. "Objection, Your Honor! Irrelevant." But Daniel was ready. "Your Honor, the precedent set in State v. Locke, Harlan proves relevance is established when testimony contradicts direct evidence." The judge froze. He knew that case. It was an obscure precedent, something even experienced lawyers rarely referenced. Judge Williams leaned back, studying the boy with new eyes. The smirk that once lived on his face was gone. In its place was something far rarer: respect. As the afternoon sun filtered through the high windows, the courtroom felt transformed. This wasn't the show people had expected. Daniel Carter, the boy mocked as a child, now stood tall, commanding the room with wisdom beyond his years. And though the trial wasn't over, everyone knew something extraordinary was happening. Narrator, the laughter had died, the doubts had vanished. The courtroom, once filled with mockery, now held only one thing: anticipation. What else was this boy hiding? Because it was becoming clear, Daniel Carter wasn't just a teenager. He was something far more dangerous, a genius attorney in disguise. The courtroom air was thick with tension. Attorney Thompson sat pale and silent, his once arrogant posture broken. Witnesses had crumbled one by one under Daniel's relentless precision, but everyone knew closing arguments would decide everything. Judge Williams adjusted his glasses, his voice firm. "Mr. Carter, you may present your closing statement." The teenager rose. His suit was old and worn, but his presence filled the room. He stepped forward, pausing before the jury. "Daniel," steady commanding. "Ladies and gentlemen, this trial was never just about contracts or signatures. It was about power. A wealthy man thought he could lie, manipulate, and steal because he believed no one could stop him. But today, the truth has spoken, and the truth has no age." The jury hung on every word. Daniel lifted the forged contract high in his hand. "This document was tampered with. The ink proves it. The witness lied to cover it, and the defense tried to bury the facts beneath wealth and arrogance. But evidence doesn't lie. Evidence tells the story that liars can't." He turned, pointing toward Howard Milton, the businessman on trial. "This man thought he was untouchable. Justice doesn't care how rich you are. Justice doesn't bow to arrogance. Justice stands for truth." The businessman shifted uncomfortably, his face red with anger and fear. Daniel then placed the forensic report and the time card evidence on the table before the jury. "Daniel, these are not my words. They are proof. Proof that Milton committed fraud. Proof that witnesses were coached to lie. Proof that justice must prevail." Silence was deafening. Every eye in the courtroom was on the boy. And then, in a softer tone, Daniel added, "Daniel, I'm only 18. People laughed when I walked in here. They thought I didn't belong. Even the judge mocked me." Gasps rippled through the crowd, but Daniel continued, unshaken. "Daniel, but I studied every night while others slept. I spent years in libraries reading the law word by word, case by case, because I knew, someday, I'd need to fight. Not for myself, but for people like this family who had no one else." The poor family in the front row wiped tears from their eyes. Daniel looked at the jury one last time. "Justice isn't about age. It isn't about wealth. It's about courage, and the courage to stand against lies is what I'm asking you for today." He stepped back. The room erupted in whispers again, but this time they weren't mocking. They were filled with awe. Attorney Thompson stumbled to his feet for his closing. His voice cracked, his confidence shattered. He muttered weak defenses, contradicted himself, and finally sat down in defeat. Judge Williams exhaled slowly, then addressed the jury. "You have heard the arguments. You have seen the evidence. It is now your duty to decide." The jury left the room. Minutes stretched into hours. The courtroom buzzed with tension, every second an eternity. Finally, the door opened. The jury filed back in. The foreman stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. The poor family cried with relief. Milton slumped in his chair, defeated. Thompson buried his face in his hands. Judge Williams slammed his gavel for silence. Then, slowly, he turned toward Daniel. "Judge Williams, serious. Mr. Carter, when you first entered my courtroom, I mocked you. I thought you were just a boy playing games. But today, you've shown wisdom, courage, and brilliance beyond your years." He paused, studying Daniel with a newfound respect. "You are not just a teenager. You are a true legal mind. Perhaps even a genius attorney in disguise." The audience erupted in applause. Some even stood, clapping and cheering. Once skeptical spectators now looked at Daniel as if he were larger than life. Daniel bowed his head humbly. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He simply gathered his papers and walked back to the family he had defended. The mother clutched his hand with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Daniel. You saved us." He gave a small nod. "No, the truth saved you. I just helped it speak." And so in a courtroom where laughter once mocked him, a teenager proved everyone wrong. He defeated lies with truth, arrogance with courage, and power with evidence. That day, a boy became something greater. Not just a student, not just a dreamer, but a lawyer the world would never forget because justice has no age.